something quite amazing that the Lord just made me realize. In 1 Chronicles chapter 29, where it tells about Solomon taking the throne, it gives the detail of how that transpired and how David brought all the Israel together. There was like a celebration. They blew trumpets, did all that they did. It's all laid out in the chapter. And then it says here, they sacrificed 1,000 bullocks and 1,000 rams and 1,000 lambs with their drink offerings, and sacrificed abundance for all Israel, and did eat and drink before the Lord on that day with great gladness. And they made Solomon, the son of David, king the second time, and anointed him unto the Lord to be the chief governor, and Zadok to be priest. Then Solomon sat on the throne of the Lord as king instead of David his father. So these are the details that were not mentioned. And as I was speaking to my cousin's wife, the Lord brought to mind the thing that I've come to realize with Abishag and Adonijah. Okay, remember Abishag? Okay, this is what was going on behind the scenes of what was happening in 1 Chronicles 29. 1 Chronicles 29 tells what was going on. So in the meanwhile, back at the palace, remember David was old and gat himself no heat. It mentions right off the bat in the beginning of 1 Kings. So they sought for a young virgin. They found Abishag, a Shunammite, and brought her to the king. Now, like what it mentions in the Bible, but the king knew her not, and we know what that means. So whether she warmed him or not, just to look at or whatever, who knows? The Bible's discreet about that also. But anyway, Adonijah, I think really, we already know he was taken by Abishag. Interesting name, too, for somebody to be interested in. Hag, it sounds like a hag, but Abishag, Adonijah, had an eye for her. So he decides, and I believe it's really quite a bit of this, he likes, I like this king business. Boy, she's quite sweet to look upon. And so Adonijah says, I'm going to take the throne. And so he takes over. And it mentions here, well, you go back and listen to us, 1 Kings 1, and hear the story. But he takes over the throne, Adonijah, because he likes Abishag. He likes the thought of being king and having women brought to you. Well, then Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, Adonijah actually makes a request of Bathsheba to go before Solomon. Now here's where Bathsheba actually goes before David's presence also, but Adonijah makes a request and says, go and ask Solomon, when Solomon took over the throne, that I can have Abishag to wife. And so Bathsheba goes to Solomon and says, I have but one request. And please don't say no. And he says, say on, my mother. And I can't remember where it is exactly. He says, that I'll give you, whatever. And so she makes the request for Adonijah. And Solomon says something like, I wish I could spot it here. The Lord do so to me, and more so, if he isn't wanting to take the throne. And he makes that proclamation about the Lord, basically standing in the mind of God that he has taken it upon himself to pronounce this curse upon himself even. in regard to women. I mean, he's saying if he falls, just totally missed the. I mean, here Solomon was the wisest guy. Of course, he hadn't been given the wisdom of God yet. But he didn't even have any horse sense to realize. And as I say that, I say this king's mule. But he didn't even have enough horse sense to recognize that that's all the guy wanted. He didn't want to take the throne. And he says, the Lord do so to me, and more also if he doesn't want to. And like I say, you have to go back and, start with the Book of Kings. But anyways, Solomon had Adonijah killed. So there you go. So much for, remember David couldn't build the house of God because his kingdom was a bloody kingdom? Well, look how Solomon started it off. Right after he took the throne, which we just read about, at the end of 1 Chronicles. And it also mentions that he was fair and of a tender age or something like that also in 1 Chronicles. I believe it mentions here somewhere. So also interesting. He started off his kingdom at a young age and started off by killing his brother, having his brother killed.